I had always thought I was the female lead, until one night I died in a car accident right in front of the male lead. The system prompted him, "Your white moonlight has gone offline." The driver who caused the accident knelt on the ground and begged for his forgiveness. The system prompted him again, "Your heroine has now come online." Anthony and I had been together for 10 years, so I had always believed I was holding the female lead script. Back in high school, Anthony was a good-for-nothing delinquent. He broke my thick black-framed glasses when he got into a fight. After that he switched seats and became my deskmate, and every class he helped me copy the teacher's notes. Later, when he won the 3,000-meter race at the sports meet, he actually dragged me up onto the podium with him. The kids in the stands whistled and screamed, and the principal handed Anthony the medal with a dark face. He raised his brows at me and the principal. "For my sake, shake hands, will you?" When we got to college we started dating. On weekends he would take a 3-hour high-speed train just to see me, and we'd sit at the little tavern by the school gate doing absolutely nothing. I would read him those cringy internet love stories. During the 800-meter test, my deskmate insisted on racing me. Suddenly the school tyrant scooped me up and sprinted, lapping her twice. At the finish line he kissed me and the whole class exploded. Anthony couldn't help laughing. "What kind of nonsense is that?" The next second he suddenly kissed me. That was our first kiss. We both exploded. After graduation we moved into a rented place. Every night we supervised each other to sleep before midnight, and then both got up at 2 a.m. to order takeout. Later, once our jobs were stable, we took out a loan and bought a marital apartment. Both sides of the family were very pleased. And finally, we reached our 10th year. That day I worked overtime until late at night. Just as I walked out of the office building, a vicious-looking man came at me with a blood-stained kitchen knife. Just like that, my life was ended by some antisocial psychopath. At that moment Anthony was at home playing video games. He glanced at the time and realized I should be on my way back, so he hurriedly turned off the game and went into the kitchen to make me a late-night snack. He called me, but I didn't pick up. The water boiled, he didn't think much of it. After I stopped breathing, my soul floated to his side. I heard a deep, cold voice in my ear, stiff and robotic like a smart home assistant. That voice said to Anthony, "Your white moonlight has gone offline." I felt the way I went offline was already outrageous. But it turned out there was something even more outrageous. After I died, my transparent soul floated beside Anthony for 3 days, but because in those 3 days his heroine didn't show up, I came back to life. I mean, according to the system's setting, my death must trigger the appearance of Anthony's heroine. If she doesn't appear, I will be sent back to 1 month before the accident and die again in some other way. Then repeat. On an infinite loop. The system prepared hundreds and thousands of offline methods for me. Choking while eating. Getting angered to death at work. Falling asleep at home and meeting an earthquake. Going on a trip and getting hit by a tsunami. A health check finding stomach cancer, breast cancer, lung cancer, a brain tumor. Even standing at a crossroads late at night staring at the moon and running into a mugger, I went completely numb. As of now, I've already gone offline 98 times. This is my 99th loop. It came to this day again. Knowing I was destined to go offline, I calmly took 2 months of Anthony's salary and bought a bag. When I reached the intersection, a black sedan came speeding toward me. My first instinct was to run, but my feet were glued to the ground. My body was thrown up into the air, then crashed heavily onto the pavement. When I opened my eyes again, my feet were no longer touching the ground, my transparent soul was floating above. Amid the gasps of the onlookers, I looked down at my battered body, entirely used to it by now. Just then the car door opened and the panicked driver rushed out. I died. This time, Anthony didn't shed a single tear. I don't know when it started, but Anthony no longer grieved for me. While friends and relatives were wiping tears at my funeral, he held my portrait and stayed calm and breezy. I thought, the more loops I went through, the clearer it became, his love for me was actually very, very thin. Even though we'd been together 10 years, I was just the cannon fodder ex-girlfriend in his life. The one he really loved should be that heroine who hadn't appeared yet. At the funeral my good friends couldn't help condemning him. "How can you be so cold-blooded? Annie being with you was such a loss, she could have had so much better." Anthony said lightly, "Then she should have picked someone else. That would have been best." My friends muttered that they should go check whether Anthony had taken out insurance on me. Watching Anthony being so nonchalant, I finally decided, when I wake up again in 3 days, the first thing I'll do is break up with him. After the funeral, Anthony went home, sat dazed on the sofa for a long time, then got up and went to the kitchen to make instant noodles. He turned on the tap. Not a drop came out. He turned toward the living room and shouted, "Annie, the water's out again." I froze. He froze too. Then that idiot lay on the bed with a packet of instant noodles and started eating it dry. He flipped through the photos of me in his phone. The mood in that moment turned sad, carrying exactly the kind of atmosphere where a male lead mourns his white moonlight. But the very next second, we both realized all 3,000 photos on his phone were of me looking ugly. The atmosphere shattered to dust. The family of the driver rushed back from abroad. This time the unlucky one was an underage boy driving without a license. The owner of the car was his older sister. When I floated in behind Anthony into the mediation room, the boy's parents were sobbing and begging my parents for forgiveness. A figure in white dropped to her knees in front of Anthony. I looked down. A beautiful woman was crying like pear blossoms in the rain. "I'm sorry, it was my brother's fault, I'm so sorry, he's still young." Anthony was unmoved. The beauty wiped her tears, her nose red. "Of course, my brother did something wrong and he should take responsibility. It's us who didn't teach him well, I'm sorry. But he really didn't do it on purpose." Anthony frowned and shot back, "Your brother didn't do it on purpose, was my girlfriend trying to die on purpose?" The beauty calmed herself, stood up, took out her business card and handed it to Anthony. "If you want to put forward compensation terms, please contact me at any time. My name is Michelle Anderson." I looked her over. Anthony also stared at her and didn't reach out to take the card for a long time. The scene froze. Until I suddenly heard that familiar sound, the system's hollow, mechanical prompt to Anthony. "Your heroine has gone online. This plot is so damn cheap." Anthony took her card, then tore it in half the next second. Michelle drew a deep breath, face unchanged. "I'll contact you myself." But Anthony's cold face didn't budge. "See you in court." Michelle helped her parents up and brushed past Anthony. I looked at her, then at him, and the world spun. It was now the third day after my death, at exactly 12 noon. Originally, in another 12 hours, I would have begun my 100th loop and gone back again to 1 month before the accident. But now I realized I could never go back. Anthony's heroine had appeared. His life was going to move forward. And what about my life? My life I had truly, solidly lived 20-some years, yet I was reduced to a supporting role in someone else's story, finally hung with the label, cannon fodder white moonlight, surviving only in the male lead's memory, becoming a hollow illusion. I didn't wake up again. I still floated beside Anthony. The system wanted me to stay with him and watch with my own eyes how he and the heroine would fall in love, step by step. Right now they were still on hostile terms. The system said it would arrange a hero saves beauty to pull them closer. Anthony shut himself in at home for over 10 days. He slept from morning till night, slept till the world blurred, and finally his friends couldn't stand it and dragged him out for drinks. They told him to open up, to get over it soon. Anthony kept his head down and said nothing. I could tell, he'd never fallen into any shadow at all. Late at night, the two of us, one living, one dead, walked down the quiet street. Footsteps hurried up from behind. Before I could even turn, someone passed right through me and grabbed Anthony. "Please help me." That familiar voice. "Someone's following me, please help me. Mr. Anthony." The moment she saw it was Anthony, Michelle awkwardly let go. I looked back. Sure enough, in the distance, a man was lurking and tailing her. Anthony glanced at Michelle and suddenly let out a cold laugh. "He definitely isn't following you on purpose." Anthony walked on, and Michelle tread carefully at his side. The man behind them hesitated and didn't dare come closer. When they reached the police station area, Michelle let out a breath and thanked Anthony. Anthony asked her, "Were you scared?" She didn't quite get it. "Not anymore." Anthony held a cigarette between his fingers and pointed toward the crosswalk ahead. "Then tell me, when my girlfriend was standing there and watched your brother drive straight into her, do you think she was scared?" Michelle followed his finger, looked over, and shivered. "Where is this?" "This is where your brother killed someone. See the ground? That's still my girlfriend's blood." Like she'd just escaped the wolf only to enter the tiger's mouth, Michelle's fingertips shook under the fierceness in Anthony's eyes. I watched them face off, full of sorrow. It was hard to imagine that this Anthony, who hated Michelle so much now, would one day hold her and call her baby. Because he was underage, and because he provided a psychiatric report, Michelle's brother's final sentence was far from satisfying. Anthony lost control in court and nearly rushed up to beat someone. A bunch of people hauled him out into the hallway. Frustrated, he slammed his fist into the wall, blood gushing. My relatives and friends all hated that he hadn't shed a tear at my funeral, and they decided he was just putting on a show of deep love now. And the person who walked out of the courthouse, bought alcohol and gauze, and came back, was Michelle. She squatted beside him to treat his wound. Her first sentence was, "I'm sorry." Her second sentence was, "Your girlfriend definitely wouldn't want to see you like this." "No, I would. Let him hurt a bit. It's good." Her third sentence was, "Mr. Anthony, pull yourself." But before she could finish comforting him, Anthony suddenly lifted his injured hand and smashed it hard against the armrest. The wound that had just stopped bleeding soaked the gauze red again. His bloodshot eyes stared at Michelle, his teeth clenched. Don't be so fake. Michelle didn't swallow his anger. She threw down the alcohol and gauze, stood up, and left. I heard the system sigh in my ear. Sigh, looks like the male and female leads still have a long, long road. That night, Anthony went home. It was the first time I'd seen him cry since I died. His tears were like a faucet that had been shut off for too long and finally turned on. The sound of water filled the big living room. Unfortunately, my parents had taken away all my things. Even if he wanted to cry in front of something, there was nothing to cry to. Because to this moment, Anthony still hadn't set out my portrait. He went into the bedroom, rummaged around, found a little ring I'd left behind, and put it on his ring finger. Anthony finally went back to living his normal life. He had a resort renovation project on hand. His subordinates put together a list of design firms, and he saw that the chief designer of one of them was Michelle. 2 days later, Anthony packed his suitcase and headed for the island where the resort was, and Michelle's team followed. I loved that island best. Anthony had prepared an anniversary surprise for me there. We had even planned to hold our wedding ceremony there in the future. He was doing it on purpose. He wanted to use everything connected to me to punish Michelle. He just didn't expect that their story, which started because of me, would also unfold in the place I loved most. Maybe the audience blessing them would thank me for bringing them together. But no one would care whether I, the cannon fodder white moonlight, was willing. Michelle put on a polite smile to meet the client, only to find the person who showed up was Anthony. Her smile froze at once. Sorry, I don't think I'm suitable to take this project. She picked up her luggage to leave. Is that called breach of contract? Anthony's expression shifted, and he raised a sly smile. Miss Anderson, I don't think even if your net worth was 10 times higher you could afford the penalty. Michelle's family valued sons over daughters. After her brother caused the accident, all the compensation the court ordered had to land on her shoulders. She had no money to pay a penalty. So the poor heroine had to grit her teeth and take on this hot potato. Of course Michelle didn't want to cooperate. But Anthony had 1,000 ways to torture her. As the client boss, Anthony invited everyone to dinner. Michelle came late and was urged to punish herself with 3 drinks. The atmosphere at the table was just warming up when Anthony suddenly chuckled. If Miss Anderson wants to drink, then drink. What's there to be afraid of? Even if you drive and hit someone, don't be afraid. Floating at Anthony's side, I saw Michelle's face go terribly pale. All her colleagues froze too. Anthony lowered his head, touched the ring on his ring finger. He went on, light and calm, though I think one criminal in a family is enough. Everyone at the table was so embarrassed they didn't know where to put their hands. Michelle forced out a pale smile, stood up, and walked out of the restaurant, leaving behind only her lonely back. I could hear even her breathing shaking. On the very first day, in front of all her colleagues, Anthony ripped open her family's scandal. From then on, she would be everyone's after-dinner gossip. She didn't fight back, she didn't confront Anthony, she just bore his revenge. Anthony didn't feel like eating either. After Michelle left, he left the restaurant too. Late that night he lay on the bed, rubbing the ring, habitually leaving the right side of the bed empty for me. I didn't know if he missed me. I didn't know if he was sad. I only knew that tonight he'd kept his eyes fixed on Michelle, the whole time, never once looking away. His head was full of how to take it out on Michelle. Anthony specifically ordered that Michelle accompany him on the drive around the island for inspection. He gripped the steering wheel, floored the gas, and tore down the empty coastal road. Michelle sat in the passenger seat, her face drained of color. She bit her trembling lips and said, "Mr. Anthony, could you stop for a second?" Anthony ignored her, ice cold. The more panicked she was, the more he enjoyed it. He almost perversely enjoyed that moment. A long time later, the car finally stopped. Michelle's legs went weak, she opened the car door and dropped straight to her knees. Anthony looked down at her from above, watching her retch miserably at his feet. He yanked her up and shoved her into the driver's seat. "Come on, I'll give you a chance to get back at me." Michelle's hands balled into tight fists. "I'm sorry. Mr. Anthony, I can't drive." "Can't?" Anthony sat in the passenger seat like a king, as if he'd just heard the funniest joke in the world. "What's there you can't do?" "Drive. Hit something. Your family's history of mental illness is basically your driver's license." Michelle clenched her jaw and, forced by Anthony, started the car. Anthony used the nastiest, sharpest words to mock her, to grind her down. I felt a little dazed as I listened. In my memory, Anthony was still a simple, reckless boy. He always smiled at me. Even in a fight he could free one hand to flash me AV sign. Now he was all shadow and anger, like he wanted to stomp Michelle straight into hell. I saw Michelle already sweating cold, her face white as paper, but she didn't say a word. After a long while, even Anthony got tired. He leaned back in the seat and said in a low voice, "Just pick a tree on the roadside and crash into it. Then we're both free." Michelle paused, then suddenly raised a stiff smile. Mr. Anthony, you're the client. I have to make sure you get back to the resort safely. Besides, you still haven't accepted my family's apology, have you? You could hear her pushing back, too. Sitting in the back seat, I looked at her and then at him. Sigh. It's okay. One day you won't just accept her apology, you'll apologize to her for today. When they got back to the resort, Michelle stepped out of the car and immediately slid down against the door. Her colleagues hurried over to support her. The doctor told you not to drive, didn't he? What are you doing? Mr. Anthony, I'm really sorry, Michelle has always had a psychological block. Her therapist advises her not to operate vehicles. If you need something in future, please ask the rest of us. So that trembling wasn't from Anthony scaring her. Anthony said nothing, he just stared at her. So he'd found the heroine's weak spot and now the male lead couldn't quite bear it? But he only chuckled. Your family's excuses really come in every flavor. I didn't understand what Anthony wanted out of this revenge. Did he want her life? But we all knew, objectively, she was innocent. That night, while her coworkers barbecued on the beach, Anthony named her and her alone to hand in 2 full proposals by morning, so she had to sit by herself on the seaside suspension bridge and work. Anthony walked over and picked up the draft she'd just drawn. He glanced once. Redo. Then dropped it on the ground. After a whole night in the sea breeze, Michelle finally couldn't swallow it anymore. She summoned her courage and spoke. Mr. Anthony, you're the one who insisted I take this project. When can you stop taking private revenge on me? When my girlfriend comes back to life. Michelle grabbed him. That's enough? Anthony flung her off. He didn't expect to use so much force. Michelle's body tipped, rolled right over the bridge rail, and fell. She caught Anthony in time, clinging to him. In the darkness came a splash, both of their bodies were swallowed by the Black Sea. I froze in midair. It felt like watching a TV drama. Not sure yet, watch a little more. When I came back to myself I was a bit panicked. But actually there was no need to worry. They're the male and female leads, they can't die. Falling into the sea is like falling into a bathtub, just another way to boost their relationship. Was this a dog blood scene the system arranged for them? Maybe not. People fated to meet are tied together from the start. Even their doomed tie is still a tie. Anthony was a good swimmer, he surfaced quickly and cut toward the shore with clean strokes. Michelle's head broke the water, then sank again, her cries for help broken by seawater. Anthony didn't even look back. He swam for the lights fast. Was he really going to let her drown? I suddenly got nervous. For one instant, only one, Anthony hesitated. We all heard Michelle's drowning cry choked full of seawater. Anthony, if you asked me whether you should save her, I would tell you, as your cannon fodder white moonlight, I think it's super unlucky. But we've been together 10 years, you know me. I'm a kind person. And I don't think kindness is a mistake. And I know you're a kind person. At most I blame you for not loving me enough. I won't blame someone else. Even if your heroine had to enter on the queue of my death. At last, in the heavy night, Anthony turned back, dipped his body and dove again, swimming anxiously toward Michelle. I let out a breath. On the dark water, the beach's neon shimmered, in the rippling tide I watched their shadows draw closer, closer, until they became one. Anthony saved Michelle. When he carried her up onto the sand, Michelle clutched his clothes like a drowning person clinging to driftwood. Anthony pried her fingers off, threw her aside, and walked away. Tourists on the beach swarmed toward her, he never once looked back. Back in his room, Anthony sat on the floor, exhausted, and lifted his hand to look at that ring. Maybe through the halo of that ring, he dimly saw me. His eyes filled with tears. He asked me, Annie, what should I do? I wanted to avenge you. I'm sorry. What should I do? I squatted in front of him and reached out with my transparent fingers to touch his cheek. You've been my lover for 10 years. You know what I'd answer? You're just confused for a moment. Outside, Michelle's coworkers were hurrying around looking for a doctor. Inside, it was quiet. Anthony curled up in the corner of the room. He fell asleep, lips pressed to that ring. I patted his shoulder to comfort him, but he couldn't feel it. In the next few days, Michelle didn't dare take sick leave and give Anthony an excuse, so she worked on with a fever. Strangely, Anthony stopped making things hard for her. Like that, they peacefully waited for the last night before leaving the resort. That night, Anthony's doorbell suddenly rang. I floated behind him as he went to open the door, and I didn't expect the visitor to be Michelle. It looked like she'd had to gear herself up before coming. She smiled at Anthony. I don't think I ever thanked you properly, Mr. Anthony. Thank you for saving me at the beach. Anthony raised his hand to shut the door. Can we please talk it through? I don't want you to go back and complain about our team again. Anthony smiled. That suggestion I'll keep. Michelle said patiently, I know you hate me, but at least my colleagues are innocent, right? Innocent? You don't seem qualified to use the word innocent. Anthony turned, went back into the room, and ignored her. Michelle followed him in. Usually she swallowed everything, but tonight she'd drunk, and she finally dared yell out what she never dared to say. That's enough. Was it me who hurt your girlfriend? I've already apologized to you as sincerely as I can. I can meet every condition you name for compensation, but I wasn't the one who did it. Just because the killer is my brother, I don't deserve to live. Anthony grabbed Michelle's wrist with a cold face, but her burning hot skin made him loosen his grip in discomfort. You deserve to live. Your brother deserves to live. Your whole family deserves to live. He mocked her calmly, already too tired to argue. Michelle's eyes filled with tears. Choking, she said, then what am I supposed to do? Other than shamelessly begging for your forgiveness, what else can I do? My family hurt you, do I get a choice? I don't want to be tormented by you, I don't want to keep paying for them, I want to be selfish and only care about my own life, do I get a choice? Anthony was speechless. He frowned and waved her away. Get out. Michelle wiped her tears, turned around, hadn't even taken a few steps when she suddenly fainted right in Anthony's doorway. Fine. Drifting around her like this, I'd already guessed. The follow-up in this kind of plot is always, the male lead rushes over in a panic to pick her up, is shocked to discover the heroine actually has a fever, and with 5 parts guilt, 3 parts soft-heartedness, and 2 parts sour, complicated emotion, he takes care of her all night. Then the next morning, in the warm sunlight, the two of them clear the air, their relationship slowly starts to warm up. What revenge? It's just the male and female leads flirting. Except, 10 seconds passed, and Michelle was still lying on the floor. I looked back at Anthony. He stood where he was, motionless, staring at the woman on the ground. What are you doing? The next second he turned around and called the front desk. Come move the person at my door. Move what? A person. What person? I don't know. Move where? Hospital, police station, the crematorium, your call. Michelle guessed right. After Anthony left the resort, he replaced her whole team, and her company simply threw the blame on her, docking a month of her salary and bonus. At the end of the month, the deadline the court had set for the Anderson family to transfer compensation, no money arrived in my parents' account. My parents were still grieving me, they didn't lack money, and they didn't really care whether the compensation was on time. But it gave Anthony another handle. He took people straight into the Anderson house like a mob boss. Michelle's parents were already haggard from their son going to prison. When they heard Anthony was there for money, their faces hardened and they waved their hands. Go ask my daughter. Our son's already in jail because of you, where are we supposed to get money to pay you? Perfect. Anthony called more men in to empty their house. Michelle's parents cried and wailed, cursing that Anthony bullied people. Michelle rushed back. Her mother grabbed her and slapped her the second she came in. You useless girl. They're about to move the whole house and now you come. Do you want to watch us die? Michelle froze. I froze too. Anthony turned his back in irritation. Michelle's small face was paper white. She lifted her eyes to Anthony's back, bit her lip hard, and swallowed her unwilling tears. Mr. Anthony, I'll borrow it. I'll borrow it, I'll get you the money right away. Anthony looked back at her, faintly displeased. Why are you crying? Do I look like I'm robbing you? Isn't this money what you should be paying? The way he pressed her made it hard to breathe. Michelle wiped her tears. Yes, it's what we should pay, it is. Only then did Anthony smile. Then don't be late next time. I noticed something strange. Every morning when Anthony woke up, he would stare at the empty pillow on his right. Sometimes he would shed tears. I counted, never more than 2. I think it was because he was staring too long without blinking. One morning he touched the ring on his finger and muttered, Annie, I know what to do. He knew who he should take revenge on. He should take revenge on Michelle's parents. Michelle's parents ran a little tea house, neighbors came there to drink tea and play cards. Anthony sent people twice to splash chili oil at their door, and even reported them for gambling. Soon enough, the tea house shut down. Michelle came to negotiate with Anthony. The first thing Anthony said to her was, they forced you to come? I watched Anthony, his face was still flat, his eyes casual when he looked at Michelle. It didn't look like there was much progress between them, but he could already sense her difficulty. Michelle paused. What do I have to do for you to let my parents go? They're old. They really can't stand this. Anthony raised his brows, said nothing. Do you want me to kneel to you in public and beg you to let them go? Michelle sounded like her heart was dead. Before the words were even finished she was already standing up. Anthony watched her coldly. You can kneel. I'll watch you kneel anywhere, kneel as long as you want, break your knees, ruin your legs, I'd love to see it, Anthony chuckled, but as far as I remember, your parents haven't knelt yet. Michelle stared at him, face white. Don't go too far. You're very good to your family, Anthony murmured. A trace of hope lit in Michelle's eyes. But it's useless. 2 days later, Michelle was dragged straight into Anthony's office by her mother. Michelle's mother opened her mouth and started throwing a tantrum. My son's already in jail, what more do you want? You're a grown man, how can you be so petty? I'm telling you, if you want money, we don't have any. Anthony closed the file in his hand. Then what do you have? Those crappy pieces of furniture. We've got a daughter. Take her to pay the debt. Here, give you a girlfriend. Michelle's mother's shrewish performance actually made Anthony frown and fall silent for a second. Michelle couldn't stand it anymore, she shoved her mother aside. That's enough. How long are you going to be crazy? You dead girl, you. You said my brother wanted a car, I bought it for him. He caused an accident and you said it was my fault. 2 million in compensation, I admitted it. And now you're still doing this to me? If you really don't treat me like your daughter, then I can stop treating you like my mother. Maybe she'd never imagined her always obedient daughter would suddenly push back. Michelle's mother just stood there, dumbfounded. If you don't want to move, you can kneel and beg him. If you don't want to pay, you can appeal. Michelle wiped her tears, straightened her back, and shouldered past her mother, but stop coming to me. After watching the whole farce, Anthony's face didn't change, his fingers kept twirling a pen. When Michelle left, he called security to send the people out. I sat on Anthony's desk, sighed, and said, she's actually pretty pitiful, you know. He kept his head down, so I couldn't see his expression. That night, Anthony was called to a bar by his friends. They all cared about him and tentatively asked if he needed a new relationship to ease his pain. But Anthony said, when Annie wakes up, we'll treat everyone to dinner. Everyone there got chills. They thought he was mentally unwell. The bar's neon lights passed right through my transparent body. I looked at Anthony helplessly. Is he planning to use me, the cannon fodder white moonlight, as a shield forever? After 3 rounds of drinks, from a distance Anthony saw Michelle sitting at the bar drinking by herself. He was going to ignore her, but Michelle, holding her glass, walked over anyway. She was drunk, eyes red, and squeezed through the crowd to Anthony's side with a full glass of beer. Mr. Anthony, here's to you for making me see my parents' true faces, to you for making me lose my job. To you for making me feel, for the first time, that living is this hard. Anthony's fist tightened, then loosened, then tightened again. His brows twitched, in the end he said nothing. But just from that reaction, I knew, Michelle losing her job hadn't been part of his plan. Michelle's hot tears slid down the glass. She suddenly put her hand on Anthony's shoulder. I'm toasting you, why aren't you drinking? I'm not the sinner tonight. If you don't drink now and try to hit on me later, I won't give you face. She was clearly drunk, crying and laughing. But I noticed that in that dim light, Michelle acting wild like that had a kind of indescribable beauty. Anthony, you lucky brat. So? Not talking, because you're moved? I looked up at Anthony, and watched him, with the coldest face and voice, say. No need to thank me. This is what your family deserves. If it's not enough, we can add more. Michelle grabbed a beer can and smashed it at him. Get out. Get out. She collapsed back into the crowd. Everyone around looked at Anthony like he was a freak. It wasn't until Anthony's business partner came over to help Michelle up that the awkward scene wrapped up. Michelle curled up in the corner of the sofa, hugging her bottle, crying and shouting, every word about how Anthony had tormented and punished her. Anthony couldn't be bothered to explain. He stood up, grabbed his jacket, and was about to leave. His partner stopped him. You're not going to see her home? Anthony paused, then asked back, is that something I'm supposed to do? After hearing the whole story, Anthony's partner really didn't approve of his using work to settle personal scores. Once you walk out of the company, do whatever you want. But since it's business, you have to think about the company's image. You can't just. Anthony slumped back in his chair, exhausted. So what do you want me to do? How about this, Miss Anderson's been dismissed, yes, but we'll still give the resort project to her. That way it's compensation for her, and it also salvages our reputation. Anthony touched the ring on his ring finger. Then he said, do whatever you like. That was how Anthony and Michelle came to the little island I loved for the second time, but this time, there seemed to be much less hostility between them. When they were checking in at the resort, the two of them stood side by side, not butting heads. I floated behind them and heard a passing tourist point at them and say, look, that couple must be here for their honeymoon too. I really picked the right place, didn't I? No one else heard it, only I did. Anthony was saying to Michelle at the time, when the project is done, I'll transfer the payment directly to Annie's parents' account as your family's compensation. Michelle refused in one breath. Why should you? My money is my money. The compensation is what my parents should pay. If you dare withhold my salary, I'll see you in court. Anthony was speechless. He picked up his suitcase and turned to go back to his room. Michelle suddenly called out, Mr. Anthony. He turned back to look at her. I don't think we can be friends, but for the next few days, I hope we can at least keep things professional. Anthony didn't speak. I knew then that his hatred toward Michelle had already been shaken. Very soon, he would get to know her, understand her, then love her. And very soon, he would start to put me down. Completely. In the following days, Michelle showed Anthony every bit of her personal charm. At work she was meticulous, decisive, and unyielding. The two of them could argue endlessly over whether the guest room doors should be automatic or sliding. When they were tired of arguing, Anthony would wave a truce, and Michelle would hand him a cup of coffee. Drink. When you're done we'll keep going. At dusk, with the sunset gilding the sea, Michelle was playing in the water with some tourist kids. Anthony stood on the sand, watching her, not moving for a long time. Michelle's smile was so sweet. If he was drawn to it, if his heart moved, I wouldn't be surprised at all. At last, the male and female leads were stepping into the main storyline. I stayed behind Anthony and didn't look at his face. I thought my chest should feel heavy right now, but I had already lost my body. I was just a dazed soul, I couldn't even feel pain anymore. Michelle walked up beside him and snorted. If you want to play, get in the water. What are you standing here for? With all that debt on you, you can still laugh? Am I supposed to walk around in mourning then? Michelle lifted her brows, bright and lively. You people, the more you want to crush me, the happier I'm going to live. Anthony turned to leave. No one wants you dead. Michelle, she was like leaping light, like spring wind in motion. By the usual pattern, if she kept moving like this, she'd slip into the male lead's world. Late that night, when they were both working overtime, Michelle and Anthony fell asleep face down on a pile of sketches. Anthony woke first. The moment he opened his eyes he saw Michelle sleeping. He looked at her and didn't get up for a long time. It was a very long 2 minutes. So long I almost heard my own slow, aching heartbeat. At last, I felt a trace of sorrow. Anthony, when you looked at your heroine sleeping right in front of you, what were you feeling? Joy? Guilt? Confusion? Or was it your heart moving? In those long 2 minutes, was there even 1 second when my face passed before your eyes? I am the woman who spent 10 years by your side, every single day. Of course, even if you decide to forget me now, I won't say anything. Because those 10 years were a third of my life, but to you they were only an eighth. Michelle later discovered that there was a patch of lawn on the island with an incredible view. She wanted to discuss with Anthony how to make good use of that lawn, but Anthony rejected her outright. No. Michelle paused. Why? I said no, so it's no. You're dissatisfied with me again, aren't you? Michelle was so mad she turned to leave. Actually, I wanted to say no too. I'd told Anthony more than once that I wanted to hold our wedding on that lawn. I'd even foolishly saved a bunch of design ideas, like every starry-eyed girl who dreams of decorating her own wedding. Anthony said every time, okay, I got it. Now Michelle wanted to change it into, I didn't even know what. Would Anthony insist for my sake? Or would he compromise for his heroine? 2 days later, Anthony's business partner came to the resort to check on the project. Michelle presented her plan for the lawn, but since Anthony had vetoed it, she decided to scrap it. Unexpectedly, Anthony's partner kept shaking his head. If it's good for the project, then we should do it. Don't mind him, I'll handle it. The next day Michelle went to Anthony again and cautiously asked why he'd rejected her plan. Anthony, for once, replied calmly. Annie liked it. That lawn doesn't get many visitors. I wanted to keep it as it is if I could. Consider it, my way of remembering Annie. Michelle froze. Then, not knowing what to do, she twisted her hands together, her eyes filling with tears, and said to Anthony, I'm sorry. Anthony looked at her, puzzled. For what? By the time they got there, the lawn had already been fenced off and a construction in progress sign had been put up. I could hear the sounds of weeding and piling inside, the messy, heavy footsteps trampling over it. The little sacred place I'd dreamed of in life was about to become a tourist spot trampled by countless feet. It's not a big deal, really. It's not like I could occupy it forever. It's just that I remembered, the traces of my existence in this world were being erased, one by one. I wanted to cry. But I was only a thin, drifting soul. I couldn't cry, my eyes couldn't even get wet. This world could wipe me out, and my lover could forget me, and I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Anthony ripped the construction sign down and rushed in, shouting at them to stop. The workers refused. If we stop now, we'll miss the deadline. The foreman, hot-tempered, thought Anthony was here to cause trouble. He told him to get lost and grabbed a shovel to throw at him. Michelle lunged forward and wrapped her arms around Anthony. The shovel slammed into her shoulder. The pain made her frown and suck in a sharp breath. Anthony froze, looking down at her. Michelle's face, pale with pain, made people ache for her, and she was still telling Anthony, I'm sorry, I really didn't know this place was so important to you. The workers weren't moved, they kept doing their work. Furious, Anthony rushed the foreman and started fighting him. Michelle tried hard to stop him, but the pain made her too weak. I watched the whole noisy mess in silence. I was being so sentimental. At that moment I was wondering, was Anthony angry for me, or for Michelle? It wasn't until Anthony's partner arrived that the chaos was brought under control. Anthony, are you insane? You really want to cut off our income over someone who's already dead? Anthony, eyes blood red, grabbed him by the collar. Annie really treated you like a friend, this is how you repay her? You clearly promised her you wouldn't touch this place. When did I ever promise her that? Anthony, don't pretend to be deep with me. When your girlfriend died you didn't even shed a tear. You didn't even put up her photo, what, so you wouldn't delay finding the next one? What are you pretending to be a devoted boyfriend for now? She isn't dead. She's waking up tomorrow morning. The out-of-control, half-crazed look on Anthony's face made everyone around him take a few steps back in disgust. His partner shoved him away. You're seriously sick. Anthony fell to the ground, dazed. Everyone thought he was a lunatic, everyone except Michelle, who firmly helped him up. She was crying as she secretly tightened her grip on his hand. Michelle went to the pharmacy to buy ointment for bruises. When she came back to the resort, she ran into Anthony smoking at the entrance. Anthony glanced at her and asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Thanks." Michelle froze for a second, then lowered her head and smiled. "Maybe I really do owe you." Neither of them said anything more. They just stood there quietly, side by side, looking at the distant sea, flat and black like a piece of cloth. The scene was beautiful enough to be the end of a story. After weathering every hardship and trial, the male and female leads finally stand together. But Anthony just had to break it. "Why are you still here? Have you eaten dinner?" Anthony turned his head to look at Michelle. That sudden question was like an undercurrent finally breaking the surface. We all knew that one line meant their relationship had already changed. "None of your business." Anthony turned coldly and went back to his room. "Anthony, you really should let yourself go. She's been gone a long time. Do you really think she's still going to wake up?" Michelle raised her hand and bravely tugged on the hem of his jacket. "I just think it's too pitiful to see you like this. Get better soon. There's better, happier life waiting for you, okay?" Anthony flicked off her hand. "Miss Anderson, you're not qualified to say that." But Michelle was firm. "But she definitely wanted you to be happy." "No. I'm actually a petty person. If the man I loved for so many years just forgot me like that, I'd be mad." Michelle repeated, "She really wanted you to be happy?" Anthony suddenly laughed. A scornful, mocking, impolite laugh, like he was laughing at Michelle, at her ignorant self-importance. He replied with the same stubbornness, "You really mind too much." Anthony was possessed. He was desperate to prove I would still wake up. Every day he went to bed early, and every dawn he woke up at first light. But all he saw was still that empty pillow on his right. The resort project was nearing its end, and Michelle often took the initiative to find Anthony to discuss the design. I could see it in her eyes every time she quietly glanced at Anthony's profile. The feelings in her eyes were impossible to hide. She was trying so hard to pull Anthony back to a good, real life, but Anthony wasn't buying it. That night, Michelle came to ask him to take a walk on the beach. Anthony lowered his eyes and shrugged off his jacket in 2 or 3 motions. "I'm going to sleep. Aren't you leaving?" "My girlfriend likes to sleep early." Michelle's face went cold, but she still forced up a humble smile. "Then rest early. Tomorrow let's have breakfast together? You haven't tried the soy milk in the restaurant yet." "Then help me buy 2. My girlfriend likes it too." "That's enough, Anthony," Michelle finally snapped. "Don't be like this. Just act normal. Best not to call me that." Anthony shoved her out with a cold face and shut the door in one motion. The room was silent. I looked at Anthony helplessly. The next day Michelle was fully revived again, glowing like a little sun, and brought her design drafts to Anthony. Anthony took one look and said coolly, "Miss Anderson, honestly I don't even understand what you're drawing." Michelle was so embarrassed she almost creased the paper in her hands. Anthony suddenly laughed again. "But maybe my girlfriend would be interested. She used to love dragging me to design this and that." "Enough. Stop bringing her up. None of us feels good." Michelle spun around and ran out. After that, Michelle didn't show up for 2 whole days. Then came a day of heavy rain. The resort was dark, visitors were advised to stay in their rooms, yet when Anthony went out, he saw his partner soaked to the bone. One question later, he found out he'd gone to scout the woods on the south side. Michelle had gone with him. But Michelle hadn't come back. Only he had. Anthony frowned and spat, "You're really a piece of work." He turned around, grabbed an umbrella, and rushed out of the resort, driving straight into the storm toward the north. I sat quietly in the passenger seat and watched him anxiously looking around. In a while, when he found Michelle, this seat wouldn't be mine anymore. Near nightfall he finally found Michelle. Both of them were a mess. The moment Michelle saw Anthony, she flung herself into his arms, crying harder than ever before. Anthony pushed her off. "We're going back." His words were still that cold, but what he did was honestly warm for Michelle. She was completely caught. On the way back she opened her heart and talked about her tragic past. "The year I first started working, my mom and dad were taking my brother on a trip. I took time off to drive them to the airport. It was raining this hard too, we hit the curb, I was stuck in the seat belt, and they didn't care. After that I never dared to drive again. The car we bought was basically just for my brother. Anthony, thank you for not leaving me today." Anthony stared straight ahead, pretending not to get it. "What? Thank you for not throwing me away like they did." Anthony didn't say anything more. The air in the car went heavy and strange. When they got back to the resort, it was already late night. The rain still wasn't stopping. Anthony didn't want to share an umbrella with Michelle, so he walked in front in the rain. Suddenly he looked down and froze. Michelle stepped up so she could finally stand under the same umbrella with him and asked, "What's wrong?" Anthony's face was full of panic and stiffness. His eyes were like a child's, first innocent, then blank, and finally the fluster and pain twisted his features. "Where's my ring?" Anthony dropped to his knees right on the wet grass and started searching for that tiny silver accessory ring, rain beating down on his shoulders like sticks. "Where's the ring? Where's the ring? Where's the ring?" "Yes, Anthony, because you went to look for Michelle, you lost my ring. It wasn't exactly an official ring, you hadn't even proposed yet, but it was the only one you could still find that still had my warmth on it. And now you'd lost it." Michelle said, "When something's lost, it means you're supposed to let it go." "Fine." I really didn't know how to argue. Early the next morning, Michelle brought Anthony breakfast. He didn't come out, so she left it at his door. I sat on the windowsill watching her hesitate again and again, but still not knock. I really didn't expect it would be the heroine who made the first move. At sunset, Anthony finally opened his door. Michelle had been waiting there the whole time. When she saw him, her eyes lit up with joy. "You finally. Are you crazy?" Anthony frowned, looking at her like he couldn't believe her. "You want to be my new girlfriend?" Michelle didn't answer. Her face went complicated. "You want me to become family with the guy who killed Annie? You want us to visit her grave together on holidays? Or you want me to pick up the guy who killed Annie when he gets out and pat his shoulder and say, 'It's okay, I don't mind anymore'? What, you just really need someone to help you pay compensation every month?" Michelle's face turned green. Hatred flashed in her eyes for Anthony, the joy was completely gone. "Miss Anderson, if we become a couple, that'll be the greatest misfortune for both of us. So stay away from me." Anthony had said it to the end. He stepped right over the food tray at the door and brushed past Michelle. I looked back and saw Michelle lower her head and walk away, her figure disappearing at the corner of the corridor, never to reappear. Clearly, she hadn't expected the story to go like this. Neither had I. Anthony walked out of the resort on his own and went to the lawn I loved most. At that moment he really did look like the Walking Dead. The golden sunset fell right across that lawn. The green had been ravaged, pits everywhere, crooked little tourist signs everywhere. Anthony stood there spacing out for a long time. I stood there spacing out with him for a long time. He couldn't rub the ring on his finger anymore, but I could feel that right then, in that moment, his whole heart was on me. Through the colorful backdrop of the last light, I seemed to see the wedding I'd dreamed of for so long. I saw my gorgeous wedding dress, and I saw Anthony standing at the end of the red carpet, still smiling at me. In that picture we were both young and full of life. And the moment the sun sank, it meant we'd just finished our grand wedding. That night, when Anthony came back to the resort, he made a decision. I could understand his decision. When he yelled at his partner, "You clearly promised her you wouldn't touch this place," I'd been confused. That was the 30th loop, when I was in the hospital with cancer and asked his partner to promise me that. Then when Anthony shouted, "She's waking up tomorrow morning," I suddenly understood. In 99 loops, had Anthony been with me the whole time? I died 99 times, and he watched me die 99 times? He held 99 funerals for me and, like me, became so numb he couldn't cry anymore? He knew I would wake up on the morning of the 4th day, so he didn't set up my photo, he just went to bed early every night, waiting to see me in the morning? But maybe he didn't understand why I was stuck in this loop, and he didn't know why this time I didn't wake up. I'd kept him waiting so long. At last, he realized I would never wake up. Right then, Anthony made a decision. When he picked up the fruit knife, Michelle's voice sounded at the door again, she was asking him to go out to dinner together. A very light voice, full of hesitation, like she'd gathered all her courage to knock. So she really had grown that much feeling for Anthony. If Anthony chose to walk out that door, he would fall in love with his heroine. He would be healed, be mended, and gain happiness and warmth. According to the so-called setting, he would live a happy life without me. He could also choose, for the sake of me, his cannon fodder white moonlight, to ignore the voice outside. He sank into the bathtub full of water. A single, all-or-nothing plunge, just like when he won the long-distance race back then and insisted on dragging me onto the podium with him. Gentle red seeped slowly across my vision. His features became soft and blurred. I didn't cry. In the haze I seemed to hear Anthony's voice again. Weighted and low, like he was telling me a story. He said, I don't know when it started, but I had a dream. It was a very long dream. In the dream, the person I loved most would leave me one day, and then on the morning of the fourth day, she would wake up again. Every time I wanted to ask why, it would get stuck in my throat. Fine, I thought, I'll just accept such an absurd dream. It's not so bad to live like that. Until one day, the person who was supposed to wake up didn't wake up. I wanted to be a bad guy and avenge her, but it was so hard. Every time I looked at the killer's sister, I thought of her, and she always smiled so happily. I don't have any white moonlight, I don't have any heroine, and I don't want to finish the script someone else wrote for me. I only have one person I love. Her name is Annie Lopez. We've known each other 13 years, we loved each other for 10. She kept her hair long, and sometimes wanted to cut it short. She had single eyelids, but always kept double eyelid tape in her makeup bag. She liked wearing hats, said that way she didn't have to wash her hair. And I loved kissing the corner of her mouth, loved kissing her fingertips and her forehead. She will not become a blurry shadow in my memories, will not become a stepping stone on my way to loving someone else. My love, you will always be my vivid, living love. What I remember is not only your face and your lips, but the brilliant life that belonged to you. I waited for so long, and you didn't wake up. So, I'll go to sleep instead.